Welcome to Startup Health TV. This is a health innovation update. I'm Logan Plaster, editor of Startup Health magazine, and I am lucky to be here today with Howard Rosen, CEO and founder of LifeWIRE. Howard, thanks for joining me on Startup Health TV.
Oh, my pleasure, Logan. Great to see you.
So talk to me about LifeWIRE. What we're doing with this series is really learning about how entrepreneurs, health transformers are reframing and pivoting around the COVID-19 crisis. So what are you working on?
So what we're working on, so LifeWIRE provides, and I'm not going to go through the extended elevator pitch of 45 seconds because of our time, but ostensibly we provide a cloud-based communication platform. So what we're doing regarding COVID-19 is we're actually working at the state level, providing support in two areas. One is essentially the self-monitoring. So it's allowing individuals, once they've been diagnosed as being positive or they've been tested, don't have the results, we're working with state providers for these individuals when they're at home to be able to sort of self-assess themselves on a daily basis. And based on the rules from both the CDC and their state partners, they're able to determine whether they need to continue, say maybe quarantine, to continue self-isolation, or at some point to say, okay, you've actually made it past the concern period, and so you're now resolved, but here are the steps you need to follow.
Okay, walk me through it. How does the platform work in real time?
So in real time, an individual's either at a clinic and they've just been tested positive, or said they're going to be waiting for the results, and they literally text a keyword that's individual to each state. And that self-initiates them. So it's permission-based, and they're going to be asked a series of questions. Okay. And these questions are created with the epidemiologists at the state level that we work with. And depending on how they respond, it will respond back to them. And using they're all variations of CDC criteria. So basically, it'll tell them to either continue self-isolation, or if you need more information, click on this link and you can get more information. What it does, it looks at and uses the algorithms of the state or the CDC to determine whether they need to continue the self-isolation. So for example, the CDC regs right now are if there's no symptoms for more than 7 days, if they don't have a headache and they're not using medication to control that headache for more than 3 days, plus you're not having immunization issues, they are able to sort of go from to a resolved state, and there's a number of criteria to that. So it allows the state, instead of having to have individuals call on a daily basis, it's using the system, our communication platform, to basically have a similar interaction with the patients.
So this is all self-reported data. Any challenges there in terms of the accuracy of those reports?
The challenge is it's all consistent to the individual. So the default is always to continue self-isolation. Mm-hmm. So if there's information that's inconsistent, we're able to help detect that. Our state partners get reports on an ongoing basis. So they see what's going on in terms of their interaction set. So either we can, or they will let them know, or they themselves can detect anything that seems out of the norm in terms of that kind of information.
Okay, let's talk about these partnerships. You are attempting to, or you are working with states with this?
We are working. We wish today we could have actually said who they want, at least one of them is, but as things always occur, they never happen as quickly as you'd like them to. But in the next literally next 2 or 3 days, we'll be announcing publicly be able to announce our state partnerships. So we're working with the public health departments of the respective states.
Gotcha. And what do you see, what would you like to see happen over the next 30 to 60 days in terms of these partnerships?
Well, we want them to grow. This is one element of dealing with COVID-19. Mm-hmm. You've got people have been pre-screened, they've been tested. Now they know in terms of self-isolation. But the next step in all this is twofold. One is you've got the contact tracing to continue, because there are going to be, as we all know, there are going to be waves. This is the first wave. There's going to be a second wave. So there's ongoing monitoring going to be required on one form or another. You've got the contact tracing element that everyone's talking about now. And then as an extension, once they get the vaccine, you're going to have the vaccine level and get ongoing monitoring, ongoing information and connectivity. So we're looking to be that ongoing connectivity with the patient.
Gotcha.
Throughout this process.
In terms of access to patients, talk to me about why it's important to be using a text-based solution. There's lots of different tech platforms that people can use. Why is this effective?
Well, for a number of reasons. One in particular, if you go look at the engagement level, the average person, when you give it a choice, and in terms of our platform is designed to actually take one of a great number of forms of communication, text, email, interactive voice, chat, whatever.
Oh, gotcha. Right.
The choice of overwhelming, and I would say overwhelming, it's literally 99.999% of people choose text messaging. So our system could dominate most, but it's all tying into text messaging what they choose. There's also a technological issue depending on the populations. Obviously, certain population have access to smartphones, they have broadband, that's not an issue. There's a greater proportion of the population, and particularly if you go to outside of the major centers in the United States, who don't have access to broadband. They may not have access to a smartphone. If they do, they may not have access to the broadband needed to run the smartphone. So the beauty of something like text messaging is the exceptionally low bandwidth. It's also the most ubiquitous means of communication available.
You know, one of the big themes over the last few weeks and with the people I've talked to is that a year or two of change has occurred in terms of adoption and the mentality around digital health in the period of a few weeks. And I wonder if in your field and kind of who you talk to, how you see attitudes changing towards LifeWIRE itself, and secondarily, kind of how you see yourself coming out of this. Will LifeWIRE kind of emerge differently from the COVID than it started?
That's a good question. I guess the predominance we always looked at is patient participation, patient engagement. So we've always felt we've been at the front end of what patients are looking for in terms of communication, saying, why can't we get information from the healthcare system? Why can't we communicate this way? What it has done is it has, as you said, put steroids on the healthcare side to sort of go, okay, well, we're looking for a variety of solutions. We need to find a way to communicate. Let's forget not the concerns, but basically going, well, we normally use talk by phone, for example. Let's use whatever communication the patients want that allow us to have the greatest means of efficiency and effectiveness and distancing at the same time. So really what it's done, not only for us, for a number of companies who are dealing in digital health and telehealth, it's opened up the doors for exploration in the healthcare system for all these solutions.
Okay.
So no question down the road, and certainly what we're seeing, is a tremendous interest in continuing what we're doing. And expanding into the traditional areas of business we've always been doing, and expanding in those particular areas. But essentially what it's done is people have realized, or seemingly so, the value of having that last mile connectivity to the patient.
Okay. So you're seeing more of a doubling down as these adoption rates go up versus like a pivoting to occur based off of what you've seen and gone through here.
I'm still doubling down. I know you've been hearing a lot of people talking about the pivot overwards, and once it's done, we'll go back to normal. How do you define normal anymore? I think once you've had both patients and the providers seeing the value proposition, again, of these kind of outreaches, they're realizing there are efficiencies and effectiveness of the value of communicating this way.
Talk to me about the kind of the end game with technology like this. If you could wave a magic wand and you really use LifeWIRE at an enormous scale in the population, what are some of the changes, the positive outcomes that you'd like to see?
First and foremost, I think it's a recognition that you're no longer looking at either mHealth or DigiHealth or telehealth, and it's just called health. It's just integrated into the normal healthcare system.
Got it.
And what we provide, as I said, is that last mile connectivity to the patient to allow them to have access to a whole breadth of services. Some are digital, some are online, some are in person. But that just becomes incorporated as part of the natural way people will be communicating and dealing with their healthcare.
What about specific healthcare outcomes? Kind of how would you like to see LifeWIRE leveraged to improve specific outcome metrics?
Well, really as we do now on a specific basis, what it allows is a whole new breadth of insight to the healthcare system. So in terms of not just getting what was your temperature today, sort of objective data, you're now getting subjective data. So it's a person's perspective on how they're doing. In terms of, as everything goes towards the discussions on precision medicine, well, you can't have precision medicine unless you know how an individual is feeling or responding to things.
Mm.
So the type of piece that we add to it in terms of that patient-generated data and validated, so it's validated data, you're now getting this whole new specter of insight that allows going towards that precision medicine and predictive modeling and all the various pieces that you're hearing all about.
Have you seen a big uptick in user engagement over the last month, and what has that meant for your platform?
Well, there's no question in terms of user engagement is people using the platform. And again, go and follow through on the healthcare side, but they're now seeing is all this data. And really it's almost an overwhelming wealth of data coming in.
Has it been overwhelming? Is it almost too much if you're not ready for it?
It's too much. Again, we work with our clients to be able to help manage all that. And so we actually use our system to limit in terms of that the providers are getting the information that they want to get and when they want to get it. But on their databases, you're getting you're getting a wealth of data, which is getting extremely valuable in terms of managing it, to be able to get insights in terms of specific to COVID, but in general, in terms of the healthcare of the individual and the population.
What are some of the insights you've gleaned since you have this platform pulling all of this data about COVID-19? Are there patterns? Are there trends that you've identified on the platform that you've then been able to share?
We can't share it this time. Part of the reason is a lot of the data it's not our data, it's the patient's data, and it goes with permission, it goes through to the providers or the state level providers. So in terms of the data, it's too soon for us to get feedback from either side that we can give any particular trends, except for the fact that this is a big concern for everybody, and they want to. The concept of self-assessing is one that certainly seems to be one that has great interest on both sides.
If you were to speak more hypothetically, if you were adopted throughout an entire population and people were self-assessing on a regular basis, what kinds of trends could you spot?
Well, then you can spot long before it gets to an acute stage. You can see changes in behavior. You can see changes in certain readings. For example, in terms of you can sort of the average person is now, this pocket of area, people start reporting higher temperatures, fever, for example, or they're responding to saying there's more coughing, or that they're finding this particular population is actually seem to be feeling better. On a general basis, it allows you to geolocate these pockets or the hotspots, as you're hearing, for those for illness. It goes from illness at the same time in terms of resolution, but allows you to be more, again, like an early warning system, really, to get an early sense of where the issues may be arising.
Gotcha. And how are you handling the security issues around that? I know you and I have talked before about some of the innovations you have around text security.
Yeah, so we do a lot, and there's a variety of ways we manage that with our populations. First and foremost, in terms, again, so the privacy side is it's permission-based. In terms of the security side, the databases of which it's collected in, the means of transport from one database to another are highly, we satisfy HIPAA regulations, and we're high trust certified. So we're dealing with all those particular areas and always monitoring other potential areas of abuse that could come up.
Gotcha. As a final question, since our time's running out, kind of more big picture, what's it like? How long have you been an entrepreneur?
To my parents' chagrin, all my life.
What is it like to be an entrepreneur in healthcare during such a historic health crisis?
Well, it's an excellent question. I was discussing it the other night with my wife, Kelly, and as you know, this is my second career in entrepreneurship of any major sort. And when I came up with this idea, I think it's almost 15 years ago now, I was sort of sitting back and thinking, said, I had no idea then, even 3 months ago, that this, which I felt was a very valuable product and a very valuable platform and outreach for a patient in healthcare. But to think that you'd have such a crisis such as this, where it's seemingly and wonderfully being something of great value, is beyond any ability to comprehend. The fact that it provides such a social good. It's really very exciting, and quite honestly justifies the decision I made 15 years ago to leave a career that was actually fairly good. when I came up with the idea in the first place, and it's more than justified in terms of sort of seeing this kind of result, and to be able to play a small part in helping some of the population and managing this horrible thing.
Well, I'm glad you made that decision 15 years ago, and I'm glad you're here today continuing to push on. So Howard, thank you for taking the time with us, and thank you for all your work that you do.
Well, Logan, thank you so very much, and stay healthy.
You too. Take care.